Hello everyone, I'm Jenna. Today I am reviewing Dead and Breakfast by Kate Kingsbury, and I love Kate Kingsbury. I've really only read her Pennyfoot Hotel mysteries, and specifically the holiday themed ones, and so I was glad to see that Ms. Kingsbury is still writing. She's giving us more innkeepers to fall in love with. I'm giving this 4 champagne flutes out of 5. It was just darling. Dead and Breakfast is the first book of the series. So we see Melanie and her grandmother Liza trying to create a bed and breakfast. They're doing some renovations before the opening and find a body. So things are well paced. We get to the action pretty quickly, and the information becomes available pretty quickly. The research that they do on the house tells them that there is a friendly ghost. We don't know the origins of the ghost yet. Presumably we'll get that as we go through the series, but it was really intriguing, something to look forward to. It's not scary, but it had that paranormal element to it. There's a dog, so right away, that's a champagne flute on its own. Any book that has a dog. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen with the bed and breakfast when it opens. How does the ghost help them or hurt them with their B&B business? Of course, there's a hot cop, and we can kind of see things developing or headed in the direction of developing. So there's going to be some light romance in this series, one imagines. And the whole town is sort of situated in a really cute, close-knit way. It's sort of a tourist town, Seaside, Oregon. And I've never been, but after reading a lot of these descriptions, I would love to go. I've never really been to any part of the Pacific Northwest, but Ms. Kingsbury really made Oregon sound extra fantastic. And I wish that that town really did exist. It's got lots of quirky characters and hints to more fun backstories that we'll get over time. Heads up, trigger warning. The reason this book didn't get 5 champagne flutes out of 5 is I felt that there were 2 topics that were not handled as sensitively as they could have been handled. One is the topic of infertility. We learn that Melanie experienced an accident, that she's no longer able to conceive, gestate, or give birth. And there's a conversation that happens with her ex-husband about her grieving that loss and not being able to get over it the way he wants her to. And he says, this really shouldn't be a problem for you. We can always just adopt. And we already know the ex-husband is a jerk, so that wasn't the thing that was bothersome. The thing that was bothersome for me is Melanie really reacts viscerally to that statement, saying it's not the same thing. And essentially, she comes across as saying, you're not a real woman if you can't conceive, or you're not a real mother if your child is adopted. And I really strongly reacted to that. Adoption runs in my family, and everyone who's adopted is my family. Their parents are their real parents. No exceptions. And the friends that I have that are struggling with infertility would like to experience the conception, gestation, and birth process, but they're open to adoption. One of them actually is not. That's not for her, that's not for her family, and that's fine. But nothing like that got said in the dialogue, so it just came across as very flippant. It also sort of foretells that when this romance with the police officer does indeed blossom, he's going to probably want to marry her, and she'll say, oh, but I can't give you children. And that's a valid feeling, but again, it's sort of being said with something unsaid behind it, which is if a married couple is not a family in and of itself, and again, this, you're not a real woman or you're not a real mother if you don't conceive, gestate, and birth the children that you have. So I wish that had been handled a little more deftly. Another trigger warning deals with disability. The previous owners of the house that becomes a bed and breakfast is referred to multiple times as being stuck at home because of his wheelchair. And isn't it awful that his wife could never go anywhere because he was stuck at home and she had to take care of him? That's not the way mobility aids work. Mobility aids are designed to make people mobile. And the Americans with Disabilities Act, while imperfect, still mandates that quite a lot of places are required to be accessible to people with different abilities of varying levels, or people who use mobility aids should have access to more spaces than they ordinarily would maybe have. So the idea that because someone is wheelchair bound or is somebody who needs to utilize a wheelchair most of the time, can't leave their house, is kind of nonsense. And again, it sort of smacked of ableism to me. And I really, really wish that some sensitivity readers had been employed and some diversity readers have been employed on this before it went to publication, because it really sounds insensitive and ignorant, and I'm sure that's not the intent. I love that there was the idea of representation maybe behind it. It seems like there was maybe some good intention there, but I just don't think it ultimately got over the finish line with the message that maybe was intended, or it really could do with having some eyes on it of somebody who has that lived experience to help talk about the way that these mobility aids can enhance your life, even though I'm sure there are frustrations and inconveniences and limitations that come with that. But so that's why I didn't go ahead and give this 5 champagne flutes out of 5, is I think we could have done with a little bit more sensitivity handling to topics that could be triggering to people who are experiencing that for themselves. So that's my assessment. I will definitely be reading more of this series. I just think it's darling. All the characters are really cute. Like I said, the town has been painted really well, and we've really set up everything, the backstory of the ghost and how we're going to move forward with the dog, to have a lot of new information coming in addition to each murder that happens in the subsequent book. So I'm really excited about that. 4 champagne flutes out of 5 for me.